Hi, it's Dr. Sherri, and I wanted to give you an update on the Dutch test. It continues to be one of my favorite functional tests to offer, and in the past I've done a video similar to this to explain the Dutch test to you, but now they've added a few additional parameters via some extra organic acids, so it's gotten even better over time. I really like this test because it gives you such a good window into hormones, not just overt hormones, but hormone metabolism. And then looking at all the things related to your sex hormones, like your adrenal hormones. And also now we have the extra nutrients added, so we can look a little bit at some of your detox markers and a little bit of neurotransmitters. So let me just run through this with you real quick. So first, this is a dried urinary test that you run at home in multiple collections throughout the day, and then you send it into the lab. Here we get your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, and we get an idea of what's going on with your adrenal glands. We get this 4-point adrenal pattern that happens throughout the day. We get your free cortisol, and we get to see your metabolized cortisol and your total DHEA. So I'm going to go down a little bit further here to show you why this test is so great. Here we're getting all of the pathways associated with the breakdown components of those hormones. And this is what you can never get via blood. Via blood, you're just going to get your overt estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, maybe DHEA, and pregnenolone. But here we actually get to see what your body's doing with the hormones. And this can tell you so much information about one about your maybe potential cancer risk in the future. It can tell you about what types of hormones you might need to be on if hormones are a good option for you. It can address some symptoms related to irregular cycles, infertility, perimenopause, menopause, even some sort of unexplained type symptoms like weight gain. People that are struggling with weight and diet exercise is not working. We often look at things like estrogen dominance, which can show up here. So it's just a very valuable test and really the best type of hormone test you could possibly get. So here we're looking at a master hormone precursor known as pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is secreted along with DHEA from the adrenal glands. So we get to see these are both known as anti-aging hormones, and so we like to keep pretty youthful levels of these. They naturally decline as we age, but we don't really want them to decline in the manner that they do decline. And low levels of pregnenolone and DHEA have been associated with all kinds of conditions like dementia. So we want to definitely keep these levels up and kind of keep on a healthier, slower aging path if we can. So here's pregnenolone that goes down to DHEA, goes down to testosterone, and then we can see how somebody is breaking down their testosterone. So this is really nice. It's important to know this piece. For instance, if somebody has a condition like polycystic ovarian syndrome, they're often taking their testosterone this androgenic pathway. So when you see this, you wonder if maybe DHEA or testosterone might be an appropriate recommendation for a patient. Well, if they're taking all of their testosterone or DHEA down the androgenic pathway, you might expect more side effects associated with giving some of these hormones supplementally. So it's good to see this ahead of time before you actually make any kind of recommendations. Same thing on the other side with progesterone. We like to look at progesterone and seeing how it breaks down as well, because you can get a perspective of what type of progesterone somebody might need to be on. And nutritionally, if somebody's progesterone is low, you want to know that. You want to see what their progesterone and their estrogen are like in relationship to one another. So you can see if somebody has this condition that's often referred to as estrogen dominance, meaning somebody has elevated levels of estrogen and in relation to their progesterone. Now, this person clearly does. We can look at their overt progesterone and we can look at their estrogen and we can see how high their estrogen is and how low their progesterone is. This is a classic sign of estrogen dominance, and this person's probably going to struggle with lots of different PMS type issues, irritability, definitely some weight gain, unexplained weight gain or trouble losing weight, potentially some infertility, host of symptoms. If you don't have enough progesterone, you're going to feel anxious and have trouble sleeping. But here we get to see that breakdown component so we can see what types of progesterone might be best. Here we get our 3 types of estrogen. So instead of just looking at estradiol via the blood, we get to see our E1, our E2, and our E3. More importantly, we can also see how we break these down. We want to be able to break these estrogens, whether that we're getting them from our bodies making the estrogen, whether we're getting them from exogenous estrogens and the environment that we're being exposed to, via plastics and phthalates and parabens, or possibly just getting them through the birth control pill or through HRT. We want to be, regardless of where our estrogens are coming from, we want to be able to see that we can break down these estrogens into a protective pathway, a non-cancer causing pathway. So this is really nice to see for people that are considering HRT, but they want to know what their risk factors are, or just people that have higher hormone-positive cancer risk in their family, and they want to see how they're breaking down their estrogens. And just across the board, I think it's really important for us all to know, females that are making estrogen, how we prefer these pathways. And if you see one preference over another, nutritionally there are things foods we can eat and nutrients that we can take to help us shift this pathway a little bit. And then if we come down further, we get to see a little perspective on methylation and this enzyme called COMT, which breaks down our estrogen. Some of us are slow to break it down. Some of us are poor methylators, or we might have a gene variant called MTHFR that changes the way we break down some of this estrogen. And so seeing here, like this person has a low methylation activity, we know this person needs more methylation support in order to protect all these estrogens that are being broken down. So further down, we can see, I like to stick to some of these graphs. These pretty pictures really help. Here we get to see a perspective of our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands are our master glands of hormones. They make the pregnenolone and the DHEA. So oftentimes if somebody is having some kind of hormonal issues, we might be able to track it down back to the to the adrenal glands. This is particularly true around perimenopause. I always tell women, if we can get you in couple years before menopause and support your adrenal glands, we can help you transition through menopause. Once the ovaries stop producing hormones as we age and come closer to menopause, the adrenal glands have to take over. And if they have had years and years of mental emotional stress, environmental stress, blood sugar stress, inflammation, all of these tax the adrenal glands, and then they can't do their job around menopause. So here we get to get a perspective of what's happening with our total anti-aging hormone DHEA and how we're producing these cortisol metabolites. The interesting part of this Dutch panel is that we typically would measure cortisol via a salivary 4-point cortisol. Cortisol has what's called a diurnal pattern to it, and normally we can do this on an adrenal stress profile, and that's been preferred method for many of us for many years. But we were missing this stored cortisone pathway that you can only get via urine. So there have been, I can look back over the years and sometimes remember patients that just didn't seem like their free salivary cortisol matched their symptomology. And now I realize it's probably because they had a different stored cortisone pattern. So we can get a deeper perspective now with this test of what's going on behind the scenes and what we're using on a daily basis. So this is really important to look at all the cortisol metabolites. We do get a waking melatonin, so we get to see what your melatonin surge is like and see if we're getting healthy restorative melatonin levels. And then these are the why I updated the Dutch test is so that we could get some additional nutrient markers that have been added, which are also important components to hormonal health. So we've got our B12 marker, B6 marker. We have glutathione here, which is your major antioxidant in the body, and so we want to see that that's in an optimal range. If it's not, it means there's some kind of inflammation or oxidation reaction going on, and your body's glutathione's getting used up. Potentially also it's related to some kind of B vitamin deficiency or methylation issue like MTHFR. We can also get a quick glance of what's going on with our neurotransmitters. We get some neurotransmitter enzyme runoff, so we can look at dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, melatonin, and our morning oxidative stress measurement. So all of this together puts a really nice picture of what's happening with hormones, what's happening with the adrenals, what's happening with some of these different nutrients and brain health. And all of this is tied together in different biochemical pathways. For instance, low levels of things like B6 will produce lower levels of serotonin. When we have a B6 deficiency, we might have irregular cycles. We might not make as much progesterone. So all of it's tied in. If you can see it all on paper, you can start to put the pieces of this puzzle together and help somebody figure out what they need to do nutritionally in order to support their hormone health and to really hone in on what's missing or what's off in their hormones. It obviously clearly goes well beyond just getting an estrogen or progesterone via blood. Much more information to gather. So I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.